Hello listeners, Jordan here. I just want to let you know that you can listen to Nighttime early and ad-free on Amazon Music. Include it with Prime.
You are listening to the Nighttime Podcast.
Hello listeners. Tonight's episode is going to take us to Nanaimo, British Columbia, and back to September of 2023. Then 22-year-old Sherry Corrigal seemed to have been going through a bit of a rough patch in life. While walking that thin line between homelessness and couch surfing, Sherry was battling some personal demons. And the demons were of the same sort that had haunted her biological family, resulting in her childhood being divided between several homes and foster families. But the shape that the battle was taking in Sherry's life is a bit of a mystery, as in September of 2023, she seemed to simply vanish, leaving behind a trail filled with unreliable witnesses, contradicting accounts, disturbing rumors, and of course some desperate loved ones. One of the loved ones actively advocating for Sherry is her prior foster parent, Jami Easterbrook. Despite the passage of several years since Sherry was in Jami's care, the two have maintained a relationship that's best described as one of mother-daughter. And tonight, in this episode of Nighttime, Jami Easterbrook is going to join us to tell us about her relationship with, the search for, and the disappearance of her foster daughter, Sherry Corrigal.
See that?
Jami Easterbrook is back in a Nanaimo neighborhood today where her foster daughter, Sherry Corrigal, was last seen in September.
We want to know where she is. I mean, I've been sick with worry about this because she has been a part of our family, and I want to know if she's okay. I want to know where she is.
Numerous posters have been put up in the area of Franklin and Selby Streets near downtown Nanaimo because they say this is where she was dropped off by a friend on September 11th and never seen again. She floated around among friends and family, so she wasn't reported missing until November. Police say they have investigated dozens of tips, but none have led to the missing woman. They also say tips and rumors being shared on social media are not helpful.
We don't chase rumors, speculation, innuendo. We need facts, and we need people to contact us to assist us in the investigation.
Those who care about her say someone knows something and they should call police. They say Sherry had fallen in with the wrong crowd and had started doing drugs, but that she is loved and missed.
Just to start, Jami, tell me a little bit about you and your life at present day. Who are you?
I'm Jami Easterbrook, and I'm a mom and a foster mom in Nanaimo, British Columbia.
You differentiated mom and foster moms. Just tell me a bit about your house and what leads you to take on both of those roles.
Okay, so I have my own kids. I have 3 boys myself, and when my first son was born, I was doing home care in somebody else's home where I would go in and take care of them, like home care nurse kind of thing. I went back to work one day after my maternity leave, and I just couldn't leave my son home alone. I just didn't want to leave him. So I ended up, the girl that I was working for needed a home. She was an adult with special needs, and she didn't like the group home that she was living in. So she asked me if she could come live with us. So I kind of looked into it, and that was my first client about like 25 years ago.
Okay.
So then I had become both foster parent and home share, it's called, for developmental disabilities. Later on, 20 years ago, after about 5 years of doing it, I just had adults, and then I ended up taking on children. And then I used to say I wouldn't take babies. I would never take babies because I don't like when we have to give them back. And I'm not good about separating feelings. So so I'd only take like 4 and 5 years old and up. But there have been several times where I've ended up taking babies just because they don't always have a place to go, and then you end up getting young kids. So
At this point, you're now 25 years into fostering. How many people have come through your house? would you say? And
I absolutely have no idea. I would bet 40, 50.
wow, I have to say, you must have the patience of a saint. I have two kids in my house, so I commend you for being able to do that. But I want to hear how you came to meet Sherry and be her foster mom. Do you remember Sherry coming into your home? Like, when was this?
Yes, I do. Sherry and her sibling were an emergency placement. They came in, I think it was like a Friday afternoon. I just got a call and said they're going to be here or for the weekend. And so I quickly made up the rooms. There's a like I have boy, girl stuff. I switch around according to the age. I'll run in and just switch a few things in their bedroom and make it more kid friendly or more boy friendly or more girl friendly or whatever. So they came, they were dropped off. Did not have, they didn't have a lot. They basically came in with not a lot of clothes and stuff like that. And they had just, Ministry of Children and Families had just caught up with them. And so they came in for just the weekend, but it ended up being a lot longer than just the weekend.
Mhm. And when would this have been, and how old would Sherry have been at this time? I'm just trying to get a sense of the timeline.
I've been trying to think of that because the people keep asking me that, and I'm not exactly sure. If I was to pull up my old paperwork, I could figure it out for sure. But I think she was about
Okay.
13. So
Okay.
yeah.
No, I only know that like the bare minimum and the basics of like fostering a child, but as you just described the situation with getting Sherry and it's this kind of emergency last minute thing, I'm guessing you have some kind of relationship with like the government as you described that reach out to you when these kinds of things are necessary. And is it like do you get background like when you're getting a kid come into your home, like say Sherry and her sibling, for example, do you get background as to what's going on in their life and why they need to come stay with you? Like I'm just wondering, I'm not looking for you to tell me like what was going on in her world, but I'm thinking if a kid was coming to my house like that, I'd want to know. I'm so curious. I'd want to know what was going on. Do you learn this stuff through this fostering?
Sort of. I mean, they do give you a like a placement paperwork, like a little full file folder full of stuff for them. And it will give you like their medical number and their birth date and their names and their if they're allowed to have contact with parents or not allowed to have contact with parents. Like sometimes kids come in and they're allowed to phone their parents and the parents even come over to my house and have visits with
Wow.
them, stuff like that. And then sometimes there's absolutely no contact allowed. So, I mean, be given a lot of that um, paperwork, which you can often find a lot, like, even though they're not telling you all the information, you kind of
Hmm.
know by just by the paperwork. So, sometimes, I mean, often kids also tell you a
Yeah, of
lot,
course.
even if you don't get all the all the paperwork. You're like, by an hour with a 5-year-old, you know their whole life, but you don't always know
Yeah.
everything.
Just to give me an idea, like again, as you said, you've had many kids come in and out of your house over the years, but what would be some kind of common backgrounds they would have? Like I'm guessing it's people will get into foster care because their parents, for some reason, aren't able to look after them. I'm assuming, but maybe give me an idea of like what would be a common reason some children would end up in foster care.
Lots of times it's drugs. Parents are on drugs or drinking too much. Often abuse, child abuse, neglect. A big one is neglect. Often parents have been being watched by the ministry for quite some time before the children are apprehended, and they're given like a lot of chances where, okay, well, the daycare or the school is complaining about for like on behalf of the child saying, this kid needs help, this kid's coming in with a black eye, this kid's coming in with no lunch, this kid's coming in with the same clothes for a year.
Hmm.
So stuff like that where usually it's other people are intervening on behalf of the child and saying this kid needs help, you need to step in. So the ministry will step in and then they'll after a while of the parents not changing, they'll apprehend the child.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, I mean,
So it just shows that by the time they come to you, the kids have been through a lot, so it must be a sensitive time when they show up at your house. Like how do you overcome that? And how do you form a relationship with the child? Like it's one thing like when you have a fresh start with a kid that doesn't have, you know, all this kind of like baggage and this like trauma in a lot of cases behind them. But you know, with as you described it, like how do you deal with that, and how do you form a relationship, and what shape does that relationship take? Like, are you their mom or their caregiver? Like, maybe talk through that a little bit.
You know, it's totally different depending on the kid, depending on the age, depending on what they've been through. I will say that you said like depending on the level of trauma. I don't think I've ever had a child that hasn't had a lot of
Hmm.
trauma because being taken from your parents, there's always a really good reason. And I mean, there's never not trauma. There's always trauma no matter what.
Hmm.
So these kids have been through a lot. So it's kids are hilarious sometimes. Like it's such like one child will come in and like I've had kids dropped off in the middle of the night. Little kids dropped off in the middle of the night. I'm thinking particularly of a sibling group. There was a 2-year-old, 4-year-old, and a 5-year-old, and they came in only wearing t-shirts and underwear, nothing else. And they got dropped off in the middle of the night, and I tucked them into a bed. They went to sleep,
Wow.
and I was concerned. Like I had a little thing set up because I thought when they woke up, they were going to come up and they were going to be all scared of who I am and where they are and stuff like that. And they walked up the stairs and they looked at me and they said, "Are you our new mom? And what's for breakfast?" And I was just like, "Oh, okay, let's get breakfast." And I just started getting breakfast and they were perfectly fine. They had
Wow.
like totally no, they were just like, "Are you our new mom?" And
Well,
okay, will you play with us? What are we doing today? No, like, no, where am I? Nothing.
yeah.
But then you'll have another child that comes in and they're crying and sad and like, why am I not allowed to live with my mom? I want to go back to my mom. I want to go up back with my grandma or whatever,
Yeah.
whoever they lived with.
And really,
And
both outcomes that you just described, or both possibilities you just described, are equally heartbreaking. The idea that a kid could be that, like, "Are you my new mom?" Okay, like that says so much about what they'd been through and what the how they or what their normal would have been. But it's yeah,
yeah,
it's heartbreaking to think that kids have to go through this. But thankfully, there's people like you that are willing to take them in, and again, that's why I commend you for what you do.
I've had I've had a little baby at one time, long time ago. I got a little baby. She was probably under a year, and I had a child. My one of my own kids was about the same age, and so I had put them both down to sleep. Well, my son would wake up screaming all night, wanting mom, and I'd have to go in and comfort him and bring him. He ended up in our bed all the time because he wouldn't go to sleep, and he was just like spoiled. And if he didn't have his diaper changed, the second he'd scream, and if he didn't have a bottle, well, this kid, I woke up in the middle in the morning, and I was like, "What's wrong? She didn't wake me up last night." Like I ran in there to check to make sure she's alive, and I was terrified. And she was just sitting in her bed, wide awake, waiting for me. And I thought, that is so sad.
Mhm.
She just doesn't cry because she knows nobody's going to come and get her. And so, but after a couple days, she got spoiled and she screamed through the night too.
Like a healthy, normal kid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've learned already in our talk. I've learned a lot about fostering, but I want to hear now specifically about your experience with Sherry. She comes into your home quickly and unexpectedly. Initially with the plan for it just to be like a weekend, but that stretches on. Maybe tell me a bit about the relationship you formed with her, and you know, and how everything worked with your time with Sherry in your home.
So Sherry was this tiny little thing. She was like 13. She looked like she was about 8.
Hmm.
She just has tiny little body, tiny little features. She was a feisty little thing. And she would just walk in and just like, "I'm not eating that. I want this." And she was just like a feisty little thing. She was so feisty. And a little bit of attitude, a little bit of teenager attitude, but she just needed love. Like she just wanted somebody who cared about her, and she needed constant reassurance. Yes, you look cute in those pants. Yes, your hair looks nice. Okay, let's help you do your hair. She just needed constant reassurance, and she was so sweet and kind, but then also so feisty. If she didn't get her way, she was feisty. So
She, again, initially the plan was for the weekend, but it stretched on. How long did she stay living in your home as your foster child?
um, I'm not 100% sure of that. I believe about a year.
Mhm.
What often happens with kids is the parents will have many court dates. And so you'll get a call and get a kid, and it's like, okay, the parents have court Monday. So you might have them till Monday. And then Monday, parents don't get custody back. So then they get another court date in like 3 weeks, and then a month, and then 2 months, and then 6 months, and then a year. So that will often happen. So that's probably what happened with them. And so I, neither of the siblings were in school at that time. So I got them registered into school, and Sherry had started to meet a couple new friends in the neighborhood and meeting kids through school. And she was on her way to like a regular good life and trying her hardest with everything that she was given. I mean, she wasn't, she didn't have a very good life as a child. I think there was a lot of trauma, some mental health issues in the family, and different things that were just sad. But she was trying so hard to overcome them. She wanted to be a nurse. At one point, she wanted to be a social worker. She wanted to be a foster parent. There was many different things that she was contemplating. And she just kind of she was a good kid, but she was feisty, and she knew what she wanted and what she would like take in life.
Mhm.
So I would like say like, hey, you have to go to school, and she'd be like, I don't want to go to school. And I'm like, well, you have to go to school. You're like, you're under 16, you have to be going to school. And so I would drive her to school, and she'd turn around and stomp and give me a dirty look and walk away and be mad that I'm making her go into class. But I mean, she would do it because she would know that, she just was trying to have a better life than her family had given her.
So she was with you for that roughly 1 year initially. What leads to her leaving? I'm guessing just things were working out better with her parents or something like that. Like, how did she end up leaving your home?
She ended up moving back in with her family, and that wasn't Sherry's wish. We were still in contact because she was trying really hard to come back to live with us,
Mhm.
but it wasn't an option at that time. So I was just still in contact with her. She would text me, I would text her. Um, and things fell apart quickly with her mom. But at that point, I had gotten new kids. And so you're only allowed a certain amount of kids at one time. So at that time, the bedroom that I had for Sherry was
Oh,
full with other kids. So I wasn't able to bring her back. So at that time, she actually went to live with my mom. My mom is also a foster parent. And I had phoned my mom and said, can you take her? So my mom took her back in, and she was kind of in and out. I think she lived at my mom's house a couple times. She lived at my house a couple times. She was just kind of in and out.
mhm.
And I believe that's also when Sam stepped in, where she started dating Sam's son, and so she started hanging out at Sam's a lot
Yeah,
also.
you mentioned Sam, and this is Sam Agnew, who's often appears in media related to Sherry's disappearance, and she's often as well described as Sherry's foster mom. But my understanding is it was kind of an unofficial sort of thing. Sherry was dating her son and just kind of staying at their place, at Sam Agnew's
I,
place.
I believe so. I
So,
can't really speak for
mm,
Sam, but I believe it was something like that, where Sam was taking her in just because Sherry didn't want to go back to her parents, and she was not at my house at that time. So Sam was just taking her in as a because she was dating Sam's son.
So now to back up a bit, as you described, Sherry leaves your home, but you're still maintaining contact with her through text and email. Sherry then is between your home and your mother's place, all the while, and right up until Sherry's disappearance, you remained in contact with her through text and email and visits and everything else. How would you describe your relationship with Sherry as she grew up? Like, do you feel like, was it like a mother-daughter sort of thing, or like how did the relationship develop and what did it turn into?
I mean, Sherry would often say to me that I'm her constant adult, like in her life, and I'm the only one she can turn to. She would phone me for stuff like, my boyfriend's being a jerk. Can you come and pick me up? I don't want to stay here. And I would just go pick her up and bring her for lunch or whatever. Or she'd be like, my shoe broke and I have no shoes. And I would take her out and grab her, buy her a new pair of shoes or whatever, stuff like that. I would just kind of keep in contact with her. I would see posts on her social media and phone her and say, "What are you posting that? Do not post that." like give her shit basically. And she would just laugh and she would post stuff. The one time she posted and I messaged and said, "What are you doing? Why are you posting that?" And she said, "I was waiting to see how long it would take you to get mad at me." And she would just laugh and we would just laugh because she knew I was going to be the one that was going to chase after her and give her shit when she was doing bad stuff. So,
Okay. So somewhere between, or maybe an amalgamation of like motherly figure, role model, support system, all of that kind of blended together in the relationship you form with her over the years. And now, one thing I want to ask you about is a lot of media related to Sherry's disappearance references her having like personal issues in the lead up to her disappearance. Was that something you were aware of, or something that you saw evidence of before her disappearance? Like, was when you read in the news like personal issues or personal struggles, the average person is going to think like drug addiction or mental health problems. What are they referring to? Like, what was going on?
I wasn't aware at the time. I knew she had had some drug issues. I knew she was using when she was like about maybe 16, 17. She started using drugs. Just started hanging out with the wrong kind of people. And so she started using drugs. But I had thought that she was like recreational. I knew she smoked pot, like that. I think at that time it wasn't legal. And like slowly starting to get a little bit harder drugs that I was aware of, but I didn't know the extent of it. I knew like Sherry was like 23, but she was a lot younger for her age, which often happens in just emotionally immature. So it's like she couldn't handle a lot of drama. And so like boys and stuff like that would just get her upset, and so she would start to use. And I think that different boys, many different friends of hers were at that time were starting to use, and she was starting to use. So I didn't know the extent of it.
Okay. Now I want to start moving on to the kind of the moments surrounding her disappearance, but let's start with how you learned about this, because again, she wasn't living with you at the time, but you were still in touch with her. How did you learn that Sherry was unaccounted for and eventually determined to be a missing person? Like, how did that come to you?
Okay. So basically, I had a gift that I hadn't gotten to Sherry. We had been going back and forth with wanting to meet up. I was going to take her for lunch and she wanted to take me for tea. She said, she knows I don't drink coffee, so she said tea. I think we had made a plan and one of us ended up having to cancel it. And then we had made a plan again. And then all of a sudden she just wasn't answering my messages. And I started getting worried about her not answering my messages, but I wasn't worried to the point that like thinking that she was missing. I just thought, maybe she's starting to be in a not good place. Maybe she's not wanting to see. She's starting to use drugs, and she's not wanting me to know this because she knows I'm going to get her in trouble. Not like she just knows I'm going to give her shit and say, you can't be doing this stuff. Let's get you to rehab. Let's figure out something. We got to find a better plan for you. We don't want this to be your life. And so at that point, when she had started not talking to me, not messaging me back to make the plan to meet, I just started thinking she must be doing drugs. I don't know. So I really wasn't thinking much of it until I had saw a post on her Facebook page, and it was from Brandon Brown. And now at that point, I did not know who Brandon Brown was. He had said, "Where is Sherry?" on her Facebook page. Has anybody seen Sherry? Can you please message me if you've seen Sherry? So I messaged him, Brandon, and said, I'm a former foster parent. I was still in contact with her. Why did you post that? Who are you? Can you let me know what's going on? So he messaged me and he said, hi, I'm an ex-boyfriend of Sherry's. We were still really good friends. I talked to her on a daily basis, and I'm starting to worry because she hasn't messaged me for a couple of months, and I'm worried about where she is. So at this point, I said, like, what do you mean a couple months? She hasn't talked to you for a couple months. And he said, no, I dropped her off on September 11th. I dropped her off in front of the casino at 7 o'clock on September 11th. And basically she walked away, and that's the last time I've seen her. That was at the point where I had phoned the police and said, is there a investigation? Is there a missing persons filed? And they had said, yes, a missing person was just filed. And so at that point, I started putting it all over social media and putting up posters, "Where's Sherry?" and trying to get the word out a lot more.
At this point, I imagine this is when you get involved in like the official search for Sherry. So maybe just walk me through what was known about her last known whereabouts, because even in myself reading the various articles and such, I couldn't get a clear picture of the time leading up into her disappearance and where she was last seen and by whom. So maybe tell me about what you've been able to figure out.
I wasn't sure who Sherry was friends with anymore at this point. I mean, I knew of Sam, and I did not know of Brandon at the time. And so I was just kind of like looking through her Facebook, trying to figure out like who she's friends with and stuff like that. And I talked to the police, and at this point, I start posting on her Facebook, missing. I made a missing poster, and I started posting it all over social media, and started printing off flyers and putting them around downtown. And so at this point, I had phoned Brandon Brown and said, and he had told me that the story of the last day he knew of having talked to Sherry and seeing Sherry, I guess. So he had let me know that he picked up Sherry in Parksville at some guy's house and driven her to downtown Nanaimo. He told me that he had dropped her off in front of the casino at 7 o'clock on September 11th and had never seen her again. So at that point, I had started trying to get the story out of Brandon, like like, do you know where she is, who she's with? And Brandon and I had started communicating like basically on a daily basis, trying to figure it out where she is and stuff like that. So I was walking around downtown talking to homeless people, all the people downtown. I was putting up signs and just going around showing pictures of her, talking to people and asking people, have you seen her? Do you know where she is? Because as far as I knew, she was couch surfing between different friends, but Brandon had said she was kind of starting to sleep on the streets the last few days, the last little bit that she was around that he knew of.
And you didn't know of Brandon before this, but what do you know of his relationship with Sherry? Like, is this like a boyfriend or something, or just like a friend or acquaintance?
I think it was an ex-boyfriend. They had dated for a little bit previously, I think like a year or a few months before they had dated, but they were broken up. at this
Mhm.
point, but they were still remaining close contact. He was like picking her up and dropping her off and kind of trying to help her out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he ends up being the last person to see her. Is it like the last official like sighting of Sherry is this time where he drops her off in front of this casino, according to him?
So at that time, we believed Brandon was the last person that saw her. The police believed that Brandon was the last person that saw her. They're interviewing Brandon quite a bit, and I guess talking to him, talking to people that know of him. You'd have to get that story more from Brandon than me,
Mhm.
but that's kind of what the gist of it at the beginning. Later, we ended up placing her a little bit farther along than Brandon. As far as I know, somebody had seen her at the safe injection site. And I guess there's a food truck at the safe injection site. There's a couple things around there, like a warming center, stuff like that. And
Mhm.
other people had seen her around the next day. That was bringing her to September
Okay.
12th. Um,
But anything in terms of like a confirmed sighting, like is there any like photographs or video evidence of her existing beyond this drop off at the casino?
no, um,
Okay.
only people saying that they had saw her, nothing concrete.
I think it goes without saying there was no social media activity or activity on her bank account since this period of time.
No, and
Mhm.
that was what really started to concern me was that she hadn't been picking up her checks, and
Mhm.
no banking, no nothing. She lost her password a few times, so she had like four different Facebook accounts and um, Snapchat and Instagram, and I was going on looking at all them, checking to make sure if there was any activity. I had went into the police station, and the police had um, like getting all her Facebook names and all that, and I was in constant contact with the police at that time, trying to figure it out. I don't think they didn't seem too worried at the beginning, but then after a while, I knew that they started to really start to wonder where she was at that point.
Mhm. And you've been close to the search for Sherry right from the very beginning. So maybe talk me through some of the steps you've taken and her loved ones have taken to find her. Like I know we can talk about social media separately, but as far as like on the ground searching, what has been done around Nanaimo?
Basically, we have nowhere to search because we have no idea where she was. So, I
Mhm.
mean, Nanaimo, the town is huge, and there's a lot of um, like forests and lakes and oceans, and there's no way we could start searching this
Mhm.
island with not a starting point. So, we have never done an actual search. Um,
Mhm.
Now, at
Okay.
the time when Sherry went missing, there was another woman who also went missing and ended up, they found her, I guess they found her body. I forget what the circumstances of that, but there was a major search for that woman. So basically, at the same time, I was thinking, well, they're searching for other people. They're going to be also technically searching
Mhm.
for Sherry because they're
Mhm.
out there at that point. But basically, the only thing that I did was started contacting all of the media and getting the media to post it. I was talking to Czech News. I did an interview with our local Czech News. I've done several interviews with them. I did
Mhm.
CBC and a couple different interviews with different media. I was around posting pictures. I made a bunch of posters and put them around town. Was putting them up on like telephone poles and stuff around town. I went to the last few places, specifically the last few places that she was seen, and definitely posted that area, all the areas that she was last known to be at. And
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah. And And I know social media has played a big role in raising awareness for Sherry's disappearance and for the search for Sherry's. And it seems to be largely you behind the push on social media to get the word out. Maybe tell me what led you to take that route.
Well, I mean, it's really I've never done this before. I just didn't know what else to do. And I thought that
Mhm.
was a good way to get the public more involved. I wanted everybody to know that Sherry was missing because I was thinking that maybe I mean, if I if more people knew she was missing, maybe somebody would tell me where she is. Maybe she was
Mhm.
just staying at somebody's house and didn't know that we were searching for her. I was posting it on her Facebook, and so trying to get all the people that she knows to know that she's missing so that maybe somebody would tell me where she was. Started a Facebook group at that time. It was called Finding Sherry Corrigal, and I put a bunch of pictures of her on it. And I just started going onto her Facebook pages, trying to get her friends to add, to join the Facebook group, just trying to get the word out, trying to get my friends, her friends, everybody that I knew to join the group, just so that we could have one place to kind of get the facts straight and try to figure out and have a place for somebody to go if they knew where she was or if they knew anything about her. And I started the group just to get people aware, basically trying to help me to figure out where she was. Now, the reason that I started doing all of this, putting up posters and talking to the media and stuff, is just basically no one else was, and I just started at that time thinking somebody needs to do it, so I'll just do it.
We're now on our way to the first anniversary of Sherry's disappearance. Maybe tell me a bit about the prevailing theories or the ideas that people have, and like what do you personally feel at this point with her not being heard from in over 8 months?
You know, I'm I'm starting to think. Well, I've been thinking the whole time. I doubt we're going to find an alive Sherry. At this point, she has no way to get money. I don't know how she could live without any source of money whatsoever. Um, and I've heard a lot of things since that, basically, a lot of people messaging and saying that Sherry's been killed, and some names have been brought up, some things have been brought up. I've heard a story where she maybe sold a bag of dope. I do not know what's true. I don't know. I have no idea.
Mhm.
But at this point, it's been this long. Sherry, even though she had started using drugs, I know she wouldn't let us worry like this. She had a lot of very close friends and family and people who cared about her. And she worried about people worrying about her. And
Mhm.
she would always contact and make sure we knew she was okay. And she wouldn't leave us for this long worried about her. She wouldn't. I know she wouldn't. So it's either that she's being held somewhere and she has no control and not able to find us, or she's been hurt and she isn't able to because she's no longer alive. I think
Mm.
I mean, at this point, I don't see how anybody could be holding her for this long. Sherry is so feisty. Even though she's tiny, I wouldn't want to have to fight her. And I played roller derby. I know I could fight her, but I wouldn't want to fight her because she is so feisty. So I think that if somebody was holding her, she would find a way to escape and get out of there, and they wouldn't be able to hold her for very long because she's feisty.
Mhm. For people who are new to Sherry's case, or people who want to get involved and support everyone searching for her and trying to spread the word, how can people do that? People who aren't in Nanaimo that can't, go hanging up posters or whatnot. How can we support you and everyone else searching for Sherry?
I mean, at this point, basically just helping us get the word out, sharing posts, joining the Finding Sherry Corrigal Facebook page, and just sharing posts and trying to help get the word out. I mean, I'm trying to put some pressure on the police. I'm making sure that they know that we're active and I'm not going to give up. And I want them to find out where she is. And even if it's a body that we're finding, I just want to know if where she is and what happened. And I don't want to have to drive around. Like if I'm driving through town, I'm searching everywhere. If I see girls on the side of the streets, I'm looking, I'm turning around, I'm doing U-turns, going back to look to make sure that wasn't her. And I just want to know if she's not alive. I want to be able to bury her properly or cremate her and bring her home and have her buried with dignity. I don't want her lying in a bush or lying in a ditch somewhere. I just worry so much that she's just lying somewhere not buried properly. I would just want somebody to have decency to tell us where she is so that we can properly give her a service and make sure that she has some dignity.
Got a quick sidebar for you before we finish up. Now, the main part of the conversation between myself and Jami ends here, but I want to include one additional moment in our talk. Although it doesn't specifically connect to Sherry's disappearance, it's relevant that she was connected to a high-profile Nanaimo murder case. Sherry was close friends with Michaela Chang, whose murder just recently resulted in a conviction against a man who preyed on her vulnerabilities. They were some of the same ones that Sherry had been living with. After my main conversation with Jami ended, I asked her about the connection between Sherry and murder victim Michaela Chang.
Michaela Chang's father has waited 6 years for justice.
We got what we wanted, 20 and 20.
His daughter's killer, Stephen Bacon, sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 20 years for the second-degree murder of 16-year-old Michaela. Chang met Bacon in the summer of 2016 at a local Tim Hortons. Court heard the two developed a father-daughter type relationship, with Bacon even considering adopting her. On St. Patrick's Day 2017, they argued, with Chang no longer wanting him to adopt her. Court heard a then 53-year-old Bacon pushed Chang in his home, where she fell and struck her head. He then strangled her. DNA revealed Bacon had sexual intercourse with the teen the day she was killed. Before Bacon left town 6 days after Chang's murder, court heard he reported her missing to Nanaimo RCMP and even pretended to be the teen, sending texts from her phone and posing on a chat group. Chang's father addressed Bacon, calling him a monster, a pedophile, and a cold-hearted bastard.
People who discuss Sherry's case often bring up her connection to another well-known crime case in the area, which is the murder of Michaela Chang. What is the connection between the two of them?
Well, Michaela and Sherry were best friends. When Sherry first came to live with me, Michaela lived kind of down the road from us, and they became very good friends. Sherry and Michaela would be at my house making cookies and eating the whole tray of cookies, and they were really good friends. Michaela and Sherry would kind of be partners in crime. They'd be running around in Harewood and be really good friends. And so they have a lot of mutual friends together because they were such good friends in their younger years. And so Michaela was at my house all the time with Sherry, and Michaela disappeared, I think about maybe 5 years ago, and it took about a year, but they found the person who killed Michaela. And so yeah, that was a hard one for their friends, because the same people who are friends with Michaela are friends with Sherry, and now it's happening to them again.
I want to thank you for joining Jami and I for this episode of Nighttime. Now, before I wrap it up here, I want to invite anyone close to Sherry's story or this case to contact me. I'd like to dig deeper into the story, and I'd very much like to include as many of her friends and her family as possible. If you want to talk, you can email me at nighttimepodcast@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you. Now, I'm going to start wrapping up this episode, but before I do, I want to end with thanks. First, a big thanks to Jami Easterbrook for the great work she does as a foster mom, as well as for sharing her story with me and with you, the listeners of Nighttime. A big shout out to Monty Data, who contributes the music for this episode, and LJ from the Dystopian Simulation podcast, who provides my intro and outro voiceovers. But lastly, and most importantly, I want to give a massive thank you to everyone listening to Nighttime, as without your interest and your support, this show would be as pointless as it would be impossible. Now, on the topic of support, let me thank the newest subscribers to the premium feed. Candace, Catherine, and Kaylee, I appreciate you. And for anyone else who'd like to support the show, you can help us out here in a variety of ways. First of all, a premium feed subscription costs just a couple dollars a month, and that money funds the creation of new episodes. But the premium feed will also give you those episodes 2 days early, get them to you ad-free, and give you access to a full back catalog of my episodes. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can go premium right now at patreon.com/nighttimepodcast. And even if you don't want to go premium, you can still support the growth of the show by simply sharing this episode on social media and letting all your like-minded friends know why they should listen. If anyone out there has any story ideas, wants to get feedback on the show, or would like to submit a question, comment, or theory related to this case, you can do all that and more at nighttimepodcast.com. I look forward to hearing from you. But until then, take care of each other, hug your loved ones tight, and let me know if you see anything weird.
The Nighttime Podcast is written, hosted, and produced by Jordan Bonaparte.